You're off.
Now you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you push there's a button on this thing right here. Right next, you got the volume, then you got a button over here. And if you accidentally have a spasm in your thumb, that's it. You're muted. It's over with. It's not going to happen for you.
There you go.
Great way to start a Saturday morning, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as you can see, I'm not Mike Jimmy, but this is, of course, Sketchy Saturday. If you couldn't tell by the music coming on, it's the kind of stuff you want to headbang to, right? I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah.
I made it, so I could talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm St. Michael Lanning, and welcome to Sketchy Saturday. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. Let everybody know who we are. Starting with you, Rodney. Tell them who you are. And congratulations, of course.
Oh, thank you so much. Roadkill Rampage wound down on Thursday. I'm Rodney Fyke, creator, owner, co-owner of Haslam Productions, with titles such as Peanut Pudding Jelly, Pitter Patter, and Roadkill Rampage. I'm on Facebook at Rodney Fyke Arts, Instagram, Rodney_Fyke, and the YouTube channel for Haslam at HAZZUM.com.
All right. And of course, we have with us Mr. John Celestri. Would you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes. Well, as you said, I'm just to verify, I am John Celestri. I've been animating and doing comic books since the mid '70s. So I've got a lot of pencil mileage under my wheels, and I've done basically I animated the initial appearance of Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special. Was on Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Rock and Rule, He-Man, and She-Ra. Did a whole bunch of Batman commercials, and in the '80s, and I'm doing a comic book series now called Bloodwing Angel Chronicles that is about an angel and a really nice character. So anyway, that's who I am, and we'll just carry on from there.
All right, awesome. And of course, our regular, the Ink Ripper himself. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, I'm MarV. I'm a professional illustrator from Portugal, creator of the Scene Killer, published by Arrow Comics and Ferdinand. And hopefully, in a couple of weeks, I'll be able to print Gabriel Reaper of Souls. So, yeah, let's hope for the best. I'll be here every Saturday, hopefully. And great to be back.
All right, awesome. As you can see, Mike Jimmy's not with us today. I think he's at a con, if I'm not mistaken. Which you say, of course, he did say he's going to be at a lot of those this year. So, which is good, considering that only a couple of years back we weren't having cons. So it's good to see that some of those are coming back full swing. I hear they're kind of shaking a couple of sponsors here and there that might have had bigger booths than some of the artists, but well. So.
Mike Jimmy gives us a different perspective from coming from the other side of the Atlantic.
Oh yeah,
it's a really interesting thing about how cons are there versus comic conventions are here.
Oh yeah,
yeah, definitely.
Of course, we got some people in the chat. Morning, Pops. And Dan Plagle says, and I'll probably mess that name up. I'm sorry, Dan. John Celestri inspired me to be a comic artist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nice.
Wait, listen, if you last long enough and you do enough good stuff, somebody's going to latch on to you at least to see one thing that you've done.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the most flattering things you hear, is that you've inspired somebody else to continue and doing art, and that's
absolutely,
that's a big thing. That's a huge thing.
That's
awesome.
Absolutely. I'm very honored to hear the comments like that. That's great. Thank you, Dan.
And of course, morning, Linda.
John, I got to give big comeuppance to you because I'm the kid in junior high back in 80, 81, 82 that had the Rock and Rule video. I had the Rock and Rule comic book, and I absolutely love that movie.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Just one of my, that and heavy metal, for a kid a 12-year-old kid just who was into animation and cartooning and comic books. That was just too cool for school for me.
Well, rock and roll is kind of like the ultimate garage band animation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of animation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. That's an apt description.
You really have to see it because you can't do stuff like that. What we did today, they wouldn't. I mean, the amount of drug paraphernalia and just rock and roll material. You don't get that today.
Yeah,
Not
and I still have the video cassette. Remember when videos first came out and they were in those hard plastic boxes before the cardboard sleeves?
Mm-hmm.
I still got that. So, but I don't have a VCR.
Yeah.
Amazon.
There you go. Amazon.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch my camera over so we're looking at the desk. So.
All right, awesome. Let me go ahead and put it. John, we'll put you up, sir. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're working on this morning?
Okay, well, what I'm doing right now is this is my Legends page. Last week I did the rough, all these images. Let me just play around a little bit here. Let's see. Let's go to here. You could see drop off that. These are various. This is an angel, and that's the kind of thing that you would see, from medieval times. I mean, an angel is not just a cherub,
right?
So, have you? Yeah, and so I roughed this out, and also a rough out of Michael. So I'm going to be doing the cleaned up version of these two images. That's
Sweet.
My plan.
Nice.
Right.
Oh.
And in case you missed it last week, we were talking about capturing that energy in a piece. Before most people see the piece all cleaned up and ready to go, and it's like, but there's an energy that if you don't catch that energy, the piece just doesn't come together right. I don't know.
Well, here's what here's what it was before. That's what I started with.
Right.
I mean, that's that. And this was purely to lay out, the elements. I wanted to make sure that the words, for example, I know I have text that go in here. So I played it out so I knew exactly what I had beforehand. So I had my text box, then lay that down. And so there's that for that. And let me get the other. Where is he? Actually, there it is. Okay. So I'll be playing around with that today and carry on with this. And so I'll try to draw a little more carefully.
Don't shake the desk.
Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, no, that's there. That is very, very apropos. Thanks for reminding me not to do that.
We don't want to be making people sick with those shaky cameras.
No.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to drop this down so that it looks like it's a piece of paper right underneath it. So I could just draw over that. A little clean up here.
Throw this up there real quick. Yeah, Dan also says, yes, Rock and Roll had great emotive facial expressions, where I got a lot of my character expressions from poring over the comic concept sketches, as well as watching the movie over and over, of course, on VHS.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's there was a lot. There was a really solid group of young animators. We were all maybe, I think, let's see, I was about 30 and one of the oldest ones. So you had a range from 30 years old down to about, maybe 25 years old, 24 years old. So a lot of energy, a lot of raw energy in that show.
Yeah, and it shows. It's such a unique thing because everybody in school knew heavy metal. you know.
Mhm.
But if you could find the rare bird that was familiar with rock and roll, you know, that was you found a kindred spirit.
Oh yeah. Well, like anything else, you just don't know it unless it was really so mishandled by the company, the production company, of it was an MGM.
Yeah.
There's always that kind of there's always a problem with when they take over, new management
Oh
takes
yeah.
over, and then they kill all the other little babies from the previous
Yeah.
management.
Well,
And
that's
that's
great
what happened.
because everything that comes out and successful now has to look like it was theirs.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
I think we're kind of seeing that now, aren't we? It's
yeah.
Warner Brothers. Just saying.
So, John, was it? Do you? I don't know how much you know about the upper echelon of the studios back then, but was it their intention to make rock and roll like another heavy metal?
Well, when I started there, I mean, let's see, I was there, in 1977. I started there at Nelvana, and yeah, I mean, I was hired on purely because I had two feature films under my belt, and I was about 27 years old at the time.
Okay.
So they were always attending to do a rock and roll movie, but we were doing half-hour shows, and the basic concept was started with the Devil and Daniel Mouse,
Okay.
and basically that's the prototype for rock and roll. But yeah, the idea was to build a studio and and have young animators. This was before even Bluth was had left the
Yeah.
Disney studio. So yeah, so we had Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson. I mean, I got
Wow.
I got their addresses, and I was asked by the people at Nelvana to search out and Disney animators who would like to come up and maybe what is it? Give some seminars at the
Yeah.
studio. So I did that, and I got uh, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson. They come as a pair, and then there
Yeah.
was yeah, that's right. And then Ken Anderson, who designed so much of the Disney's features, the early ones. So we had
Yeah.
the old guys there,
Oh
and
wow, that's neat.
yeah, so we
Mhm.
had that. We had them there, and so for a week, and every now, it went on several sessions over the years. So we did that, and yes, we were always intending to do animation, but back then there wasn't much animation that was considered worthwhile. I mean, it wasn't a money making op. Think of it, animation was not considered money making.
Right.
Well, we were talking about on Dispatches this past Tuesday. We were talking, about Sesame Street merchandising and stuff. And Daphne Lage told us an interesting fact that it was because of Sesame Street that we were able to see merchandising of television shows. Because Sesame Street wanted to merchandise because they were nonprofit. The children's workshop was
Yeah.
nonprofit. They needed to make enough money for the show, and that's what they used in the court case to
Oh.
kind of blow the lid off of that. And then we had the 80s and cartoons advertising. Well, cartoons being kind of an advertisement for toys.
Well,
Yeah.
I before He-Man, I was on Strawberry Shortcake. That was a big
Wow.
thing.
That's cool.
Strawberry Shortcake, and then on He-Man and She-Ra. So yeah, and but people, other than Disney and merchandising its own product, it was a hard sell.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can imagine.
He-Man began as a toy, right?
Yes.
Instead of a cartoon or
Yes.
animation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it was the idea to try and do they first started it as a comic book, actually, to see if they could test if boys would like they didn't have action figures. They had the toys, dolls for girls, right?
Mhm.
And then you started they figured out, well, let's do something for boys if they will do it. And so you have the action figures, other than the little model, the toy soldiers, the green rubber soldiers.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's about the time the 3 3/4 inch GI Joes hit the market.
Yeah.
The mid to late '80s, when Star Wars had kind of run its course and was kind of fizzling out. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden you had GI Joe and you had the Turtles merchandising starting to hit the mainstream stores and stuff, and then it just went crazy from there.
Awesome. Hey, look, our Facebook user over here is asking, "Good morning, everyone. Hey, Rodney Fyke, what are you working on?"
Hey, I am working on a Predator pencil and ink piece. Just because it was last week when I jumped on here, it was kind of my in between projects piece that is something to work on online. So
there you go.
I'm working on
awesome.
it.
Yeah. You were working on this last week, right?
Yeah. I was doing the pencils last week, so now I'm gonna ink it, and I might do some watercolors for the colors on it. I'm not sure yet.
Cool. Yeah, Facebook user, do us a favor. We can't see who you are, but why don't you go over there to YouTube, watch us on YouTube, comment over there, and MarV, show me what you got, Mar.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Billy there.
Beautiful.
Huge fan. You saw the movie? Thank you. You saw the movie, this last one? Everybody saw it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't got to watch it yet.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
I hear it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I hope it's good. It's good. Yeah. Going back to the basics. Yeah, can't wait to see it.
I really enjoyed it. So
Our Facebook user says he's Ed Williams. Hey, Ed, how you doing this morning?
What's going on, Ed?
And Past Master Dan says, "Dang, look at all that artists actually doing art things." Imagine that.
Art things. Wow.
Art things.
Okay.
Hard stuff.
That's what I'm going to tell my wife when she gets back home. Honey, I did some art things this morning.
There you go.
She asked what I got accomplished while she was gone. I did some art things.
There's a meme going around, and it's an old meme, I guess, but it has Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck. I think they're at a basketball game.
Yeah.
And you see it, and you probably see it, right? He leans over and said, I need to finish my art when I get home. He looks back. She's got like a sour look on her face.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
It's like, what artists think about when they're at basketball games. It's like, let's finish art.
Well, last night I got to go to high school football in Ohio is huge. And my high school alma mater is pretty big powerhouse in Cincinnati. So this was the first game that we got to go to since the state championship game in 19. And it's me and my brother and one of my best friends, and we were sitting there, and I was like antsy because I was like I feel like I should be drawing or writing something. I don't get downtime so much anymore, and it's like, what am I going to do? I feel guilty. But it was nice to get out of the studio and enjoy some sunshine.
Right.
Pace yourself. Always pace yourself. Otherwise, you've got nothing.
Yep.
You just drain.
Yep.
So do you take a sketchbook with you where you go, or is it
Not there, just because it was going to be sunny and 90 and humid as hell. Well, the funny thing is, if you ever see me in public, I have a pocket full of pens or pencils, and I usually have a moleskin in my back pocket or some type of something to write or draw on.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anything.
Oh.
So I kept reaching for my pencil, but I had nothing to draw on. And then we just started talking, started talking shop and started talking about football. And I slowly, gradually forgot about the urge to be creative.
It is a drug.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Well, I think that's was really neat about drawing is, and I guess it doesn't necessarily get old for me. I mean, of course, you get tired and you need to take a break, but you're always doing something different, so it's not as monotonous as doing a day job is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It becomes stressful if you've got a schedule that you've got to hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it is. But it's like everything else. Some days I'm not inspired, but I still can do things that need to be done that you don't need to be inspired. So it'll still be able to move your project forward.
Right. And of course, here we go. Indie Comics Network is being throwing some shade. And how many times do those pens end up in the wash? Hashtag still bitter.
Actually, it's been quite a few years since that's happened. When you have your better half, the fear of your better half will cure you of that problem.
I don't know. I was always taught to check the pockets before putting it in a washing machine. But
Oh yeah, me too. But sometimes you forgot that you stuck that one pen in your back pocket real quick, and because you needed a free hand, and you forget to go back there and get it, and your brand new shirts are full of ink in the dryer.
Oh geez, yeah. Well,
yeah, that one time will cure you of that.
Mm-hmm.
You incur the wrath of the woman.
Wow, so I haven't instilled enough fear. When do you check your pockets? So, talk about airing dirty laundry on air, right? Past Master Dave says, "Men, check your pockets."
Buddy.
So this week I discovered something I did not know, which usually happens when you're doing art, right? Is that if you you find the center of your eye, and from the tip of your nostril straight up through the center of the eye, you can find the curve of the brow. And I thought that was kind of a neat trick. I did not know that was. It's like, really, I've been following. You remember what is it, Andrew Loomis, with the layers and the the cyborg head or the android head. I guess that's how I put it. But it's funny, you could keep doing this and you find so many different things that you just never think about.
Okay, you review that. Say that again.
All right. Like it's not really great for the werewolf part, but you find the center of the eye.
Okay.
And then from a line that's from the edge of the nostril.
Yep.
Straight up to the center of the eye, right above is where you find the curvature of your eyebrow.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, well, there is balance that you're trying to get, And, that's. I'll tell you one thing. When you try and draw something, and you look at it and you think you've done a good job, and you wind up it feels a little unbalanced. Well, what you do is you just flip it over, the drawing over, and you can and you can play around that way with it. Okay, but I'll say one thing: when you do balance in a character, if you look at the nape of your neck, you should draw a plumb line to your instep.
Yeah.
And as long as you can have that like that, your body actually physically will be in balance. That's when you're animating and you're trying to figure out how to make your character look balanced.
Right.
So, and that's
Well, one thing I've been struggling with is adding weight. Like, say somebody's pulling something, and making it look like they're pulling something.
Yeah.
Is there a trick to that, or is it just? I know you have the squash and stretch, but
well, what are you talking in terms of a timing? The timing, or actually just physically looking like you're pulling on something?
Just look like you're physically looking like you're pulling on something.
Okay, well, it really depends upon what kind of how taut or loose the line is.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's a difference between. Let's throw a little. I'll throw some stuff down here. Let's get that down and just do another layer here. Get a layer in here. And, okay, so if you are, let's say, you have a hand.
Okay.
Okay, and you have that. So you're holding on to something. It's either, and that's attached to a wall. Okay?
Okay.
So are you holding it? Okay, so, and it looks like it's pretty, that looks pretty loose, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So let's throw this here and the same element and just bend the wrist like this. Then suddenly.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there. Oh, and all you're doing is you're just bending the wrist here. But look at how much action you've got going here. You've got a dynamic of pulling this way, and this is stretching, but there's also a force holding back here by this tautness here. So yeah, it's really how you handle shapes, bends and straights, one against the other.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Animation 101. Oh, okay. So let's see here. If you want to say there's a difference between force, okay, you can move this pose A to pose B. Okay, are you doing it in 4 drawings or 1 drawing? That gives you the pull and the force, the snap.
Okay.
Okay.
In movement, because you're moving it across from let's say you've got a I'm going to do a timing chart here. This is A, this is B, because it's moving that way. So okay, so if you want to just really pull it, well then you do the halfway point there and then ease into that. Okay, and so there's that. Or you can do a slow in and slow out, and then it's just a gradual tug. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In indie comics, Ryan's fill in the blanks.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Yeah. In comics, you're doing that, but when you have to animate it, you have to really show it, and you have to know how drastic, and how quick you want the movement to happen.
So, John, let me ask you a question about line weights.
Okay.
In reference to that, I've always found, and I know a lot of the quote unquote kids today, they don't know what a holding line is, and they don't use them. But like if we went back to those hands, if the underlying the lines at the bottom, if you made those a little thicker, then that also denotes weight more.
Yeah. Well, it's only I don't know.
And that applies to like two-dimensional, like comic books, not necessarily animation.
Yeah, but it also depends upon where your focus is.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
I
That's true.
mean, to me, I kind of like doing when I'm doing my comics and my line work, I like to vary it depending upon what, I mean, I might have an upper and a lower line, that might be weighted. They will be weighted differently, but I like my line work to be a bit more like Maurice Sendak, in the Night Kitchen, okay, which is really an homage to a Winsor McCay. Okay. You go back to that comic, that artist who really was the first really master animator, Winsor McCay. With Gertie the Dinosaur and all kinds of things. But with I'm also like a night. I'm influenced with the underground comics of the '60s.
Okay.
And I don't really try to make it slick. Okay. Let's do a piece of artwork. I set this up so that I could, just in case I needed to do this. Let me just go to that. Okay, that's a finish. That's one of my pages that I'm finished up here, and it's a varied line work here.
Okay.
Very much so, and for me, I like the grittiness.
Yeah.
This is all pencil work that I've scanned in, as JPEGs, but at, with high contrast and at 600 DPI, and then run them through a little smoothing aspect with the old Toon Boom Studio from 2009, and then I'll import it as a PNG into Clip Studio Paint.
Okay.
And it gives me a grittiness that I can't get just drawing a line on digitally. I'm not going to get this grittiness.
Right. It's that very organic feel to it.
Yeah, it's almost like you could get almost feeling the texture of the paper.
Yeah.
On it, and it gives it a just a little dirtiness to it. If you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I like. That's my personal style now. That I've worked up for digital, and it's fun with that.
Yeah, playing around with all that stuff, the contrast and the doing the pencil and messing with the quality with the line art and the DPI and all that stuff. That's a whole nother toolbox to play in, and it just really opens up such a huge world of possibilities.
Well, that's the thing, is that you're playing around with it and learning what you can do and what you can't do. I mean, that's
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
That's how you do a recipe, right?
Exactly.
Well, I've seen it before.
A good example. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mark.
A good example that about the question that she asked before. You can look at Gene Colan's artwork and the comics that he did, especially with Daredevil. He has a lot of those examples that John mentioned. There, a lot of panels about that kind of topic that she talked about. The late 70s Daredevil stuff, early 80s. You can find great examples about that.
And who is that again?
Frank Miller's too.
Gene Colan.
Gene Colan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was trying to see if there was something here on the Tomb of Dracula, but no, not too much. It's a very different sequential stuff that he did. But yeah, I've got other stuff there, but everything's a mess behind me.
He did a run on Daredevil, didn't he?
Yeah, fantastic run.
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
Oh yeah,
and Frank Miller's too. Born Again. Wow, he's got a lot of that too.
actually, I saw a couple of pages of Frank's new book. Is it the new Ronin or something? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it looked really good. Looked like classic Frank Miller.
You know, to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of Frank Miller's.
Yeah. What'd you say, C?
I thought, to be honest with you, I'm not really a fan of Frank Miller's.
Yeah.
Artwork. No.
He was good back in the 80s. He was good. Then he just lost his way. I don't know.
Yeah, he became too stylized. Just became kind of a muddy mess.
Superman and Wonder Woman drawings that he did a couple of years ago was just awful. I don't know if it's dementia or whatever, but he was losing it. But the early 80s, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff like the Dark Knight Returns and everything, I could see that. I don't know. It just never really struck me as anything.
Yeah, and it's interesting because back then you had, in the 80s, the slick, the George Perez, the John Byrne stuff was the in vogue stuff. In the 70s, it was more like John was talking about, the grainy stuff, the Neil Adams, with Tom Palmer inking, and the Gene Colan and stuff like that, and Gene Day and Ernie Chan and Pashima on Savage Sword. It was a lot grittier. That was kind of definitive of the age, but the 80s was 80s became more slick. And then the 90s were just a mess.
Yeah. Everybody was on steroids back then. Everybody was on TV. That was it.
Even the guns were doing steroids.
Yeah. That's when I quit American comics. That was it. At least Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came up in the in the 90s when they Image became a thing. I think I was in middle school when that happened. And you kind of go back and you take a look at this stuff now. And it's not that it's bad. It's just, it's definitely a different take on things, I guess you could say.
It's called not really having an editor.
Oh yeah, because I know there was one, I think it was a Youngblood, where it's like the time of day on the clock was contrary to what it was outside. Like, I don't remember. Like 3 a.m., but it was light or something like that. Something right there.
Yeah.
Well, there is such a thing as needing a sense of continuity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and I sometimes you have to be your own editor.
Yep.
But you have to learn how to do that. That's a big.
That's hard because when I was doing this last comic, I thought that it was good, when it comes to everything. But then I start listening from here and from there, and I realized that I was completely wrong. I thought that I was making something that I thought that was, okay, not good, but okay. But then I realized that after listening to a couple of people that, man, you got so much to learn, still so much to learn. You can't do this all by yourself. And yeah, I think even the best artist needs somebody to be by their side and tell them, man, this is not quite well. This needs a change. Even just a word can change a lot in a panel, and I realized that a couple of weeks ago when I showed the Gabriel Reaper of Souls that I was putting 3 words when I was, but I could do only 1 word, and that changed a lot the heaviness of the, you put the balloons or the text lighter, and on the other side you can create more impact with less.
Yeah.
And yeah, an editor is very important, and everybody should have one, even for only one time, just to know how bad you need someone to look at your work.
Well, it's a difficult thing to there are comics. If you're doing everything yourself, you have to have experienced the training that it goes into how to edit your text. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got to understand that you got to squeeze it. You only got so much space, which is the you can't. Can I say this? You could bleep me out if you want. Too many writers have got diarrhea of the mouth.
Yeah.
Preach.
Yeah. I try to cut as much as I can, because I want to put everything on the panels, on the expressions, but my English is not my native language, so I still mess up a lot.
That is, and that's a completely different thing. I mean, we're not talking about translations. We're just talking about if you have your native language, you should be able to pare it down, especially talking about for, comic books, pare it down to what pushes the scene across. Each panel should say something. And sometimes you don't need anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but if you need a lot of exposition, well, you better have it in such a way that it's palatable. And,
that seems natural, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, when you do a novel, and I wrote 5 of them, in terms of crime fiction novels, and one of the things that you learn is that you can say something in passing, and like, for example, when you're talking about a clue, well, you don't have to point anything out, but if you show it to the reader and just have your character pass by it and note it, and then just put it in the back of their mind, but you don't make a big deal about it, you're playing fair. But you have to do it in such a way, you can't bore the reader, and today readers are very easily bored.
Oh yeah.
And if you're showing your story and you're giving it a really solid plot, and you've got really good characters, and they're moving along, talking heads are the most common problem for any comic book, and but you also don't have to have constant fist fights.
No, right?
Yeah.
Give them something that needs to be done. a bit of business that is entertaining, and yet and helps get the character across.
There is a scene that was pointed out to me years ago in Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, and there's a lot of talking in that movie. There's a lot of talking in that movie, and because it kind of plays out like a play.
Yeah.
But there's a scene with Harvey Keitel and Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's just showed up. And if you haven't seen the movie, beware, spoiler. They just tried to rob a place. It's gone horribly wrong. They're supposed to meet up somewhere.
But that's
so
that's almost all of Tarantino's stuff.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Of course, this was the first one, so this is kind of your underline. But okay, so Steve Buscemi's explaining what's happening. So you're looking at a lot of exposition. Harvey Keitel hands him a cigarette. Harvey Keitel takes a cigarette himself. Mm-hmm. So Steve Buscemi lights up the cigarette and starts smoking it. Well, Harvey Keitel takes his cigarette and sticks it. He goes to put it in, but decides not to, and ends up. I think he sticks it behind his ear, or maybe he's holding it. I can't remember what. It's been a while since I've seen it. And so you're watching Steve Buscemi smoke the cigarette, and almost subconsciously you're like wondering, what is Harvey Keitel doing with this cigarette? Why did you take it out and you haven't used it? And then so Steve Buscemi gets towards the end of his cigarette, and finally Harvey Keitel decides to take the cigarette and lights it. And somebody pointed out to me that that's actually an old stage play trick. That when you have something that's descriptive, and at the time I didn't have the term of exposition at that time, but when you have those expositions that you have to kind of have out there, to put something like that in there keeps the viewer engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even something as simple as that, and I think that's what Wally Wood was. It was Wally Wood's 9 panels, isn't it?
Yeah, there's something that says would that always work. Yeah,
the 22 panels.
Yeah.
I got it.
22.
I got it right here on my desk.
And then I think that, and even though you have your talking heads, it's still it gives the eyes something to feast on while trying to teach you otherwise. So
yeah, and when I'm approaching a scene where I know it's supposed to be a bunch of talking heads, what I'll do is I tilt the camera with some harsh perspective, just for variety, and then show things in the background that may or may not have something to do with what they're discussing. Just change it up so it's not just talking heads.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Then let me switch my page again. Now, this is all talking.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff going on here, but in particular here, we're talking about, a little kiss, taking off of the coat, putting it on Michael, and then zipping it up. And there's, it's sort of there's a lot of explanation of what's going on. It's all exposition.
Yeah.
But I've tried to make it as entertaining as possible.
Right. Yeah, and the panels 3 and 4, you tilted the camera. It's more of a bird's eye view.
Yeah, well, there's all different things that you try and work it, as much as possible, and vary what's happening, but yet it's sequentially. There's posing going on.
Yeah.
Here. And so you have a beginning, middle, and end to the action, and it's not just them talking about what's going on.
And to me, that's one of the most interesting things, challenging and fun things about storytelling is just finding different ways to do things and figuring out whether they work or not, and then going and looking and seeing what other folks are doing, and that's just all part of the fun for me.
Mm-hmm. But that's also being you're being a storyteller, and you're leading your reader through. It's like being it's a silent film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I actually posted something, and you mentioned earlier about the gaps, reading between the gaps. I posted something on Facebook maybe about a week ago, and I thought it was a trailer, and it's a Spanish. It's almost like a Spanish short film, and it takes about 2 minutes, and it kind of tells this little boy who kind of comes across this old actress. I guess she feels like she's washed up, and their relationship, and it goes through this whole story within about 2 minutes, and it amazes me that I was able to get more out of this 2 minutes and be emotionally attached and interested than I've seen in some movies that take 30 minutes to try to explain somebody's character.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of whatever the name of it was. But somebody posted, and I was like, this is a great way for us to look at. You don't have to have big scrolling epics or whatever the case to convey what you're saying.
Well, a lot of the Disney movies, when they do the little shorts at the beginning, those are all kind of the same way.
Yeah.
You get a very, very truncated story that seems to be backfilled with a lot of things just because of the way they do it. And the one in particular that's coming to mind is the Asian family, the mother and the daughter, and the father with the little it's like a dumpling,
right? Bao.
Yeah. And it's so poignant and it's so endearing and touching and sweet. And it's 3 minutes long.
Yeah,
and
it's not very long at all.
It's so impactful, and it's like that to me, it's just like going to class and just studying. Okay, how do they move this along? And they just, like you said, it's not this big epic spanning 4-hour movie. It's they do it all in 3 minutes, and it's like, okay, well, let's digest this and see how they do this, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, short films were part of motion pictures. I mean, it's a short story.
Yeah,
it's a short story. Actually, is probably the hardest thing to write, because every word means something.
Yeah,
and it has to be every word is important.
and I find when the short stories I like the most because they leave you wanting.
Mm-hmm.
The Hellboy has a couple of novels, trades of Hellboy Odd Musings, and they're just a series of short stories. And there's one story in there where Hellboy goes to Alphabet City and he goes into a bookstore and he finds this certain book, and it's only maybe, I don't know, maybe 7 to 10 pages, and it is my favorite Hellboy story ever. And there are no demons, there are no Nazis. It's just him in a bookstore by himself and finding a book that's got something in it, and it's just such a cool thing. When you're used to him fighting monsters and stuff, but it's just that simple, basic formula, breaking it down and dropping these little nuggets of knowledge and just leaving them hang there.
Mm-hmm.
You fill in the blanks and you decide what's pertinent and what's not. And like somebody said earlier, your mind fills in the blanks. It's really, really cool.
Right, and I picked up these cups. Well, and all due respect, and I'm not trying to tear down anybody because I know what I said about Frank Miller earlier. But like, you take everybody's trying to write Watchmen. It seems like, and Watchmen has a lot of this, a lot of that in it. A lot of writing, a lot of exposition.
Yeah,
and I enjoy Watchmen. Don't get me wrong, but not everybody can do it as well.
Yeah,
but and once you've done it, it's been done.
Right.
Move on to something else. Try and do something. I mean, you could be influenced by somebody, but I mean, go and develop your own voice, or But then that's about that's corporations that say, well, we want another one of these.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, milking the cow.
Or corporate. Yeah. They see something. Well, look at all the when Star Wars came out and all the the space opera ish shows that came out or movies that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were hit or miss. Some of them were all right, but some of them were just they're just awful.
Yeah. Yes.
But I mean, what do you? You can be inspired by, but where do you draw the line on to check yourself that you make sure that you're inspired and not copying?
Oh. Well, if you've got too many parallels, then you're either copying or doing a parody.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, everybody was drawing like Jim Lee. Remember that time? So you didn't know.
Like Jim Lee? Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know who were drawing because there was so many people. I don't know if I can call it ripoff or not, but a lot of people were drawing like Jim Lee, and you didn't know unless you were going to the bottom of the page and see the artist's name who was drawing. So was that copying, inspiring? What do you think? Were people not having enough of Jim Lee's art?
That was Marvel trying to not lose too big of a market share.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of what they did to Herb Trimp, huh? They would go. You basically had a situation. I want to say Bacalo, Chris Bacalo.
Chris Bacalo.
Is it? That's the third time I've heard that name said something different.
No, it's interesting. Real quick, and then I'll let you get to your point. Is
Sure.
I talked to Chris. We used to Yahoo chat all the time because his kid's in baseball, and then he came to Gem City here in Dayton 3 years ago, and I went up and talked to him for like an hour, and I met him in San Diego too, and it is Pachalo.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I asked him, I said, "How do you say your name?" He said, "It's Pachalo." I was like, "Thank you."
Because you hear, I've heard Bacalo, I heard Bacalo, I've heard so many different ways to say it, but Bacalo.
Pachalo.
Okay, I will never remember that. I will say it wrong again, but that's okay. Now we have it on film. I'll go back and look at the YouTube video. Bacalo. So, but if I'm not mistaken, because I do have his art book back here, his Art of Marvel.
Oh yeah. Oh,
which I really wish. It's back there somewhere.
But I need that.
Well, right, absolutely. Because of his Generation X, that book was phenomenal to me when I was in middle school, and it still is. And his style has changed. In fact, in a way, it's kind of simplified. I also have the steampunk series.
Oh yeah, you and me are the only two.
I got it individually.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah,
but if I'm not mistaken, I think reading in there, they did that to him too. Or he got scared that they were going to do that to him. Where they went in there, Image has just gotten started. They just lost Jim Lee, and they had everybody in there trying to draw like Jim Lee. That's what is it Herb Trimp? I think that they tried to get him to do the same thing, and that's what you were looking at. Is like John said, it was a corporate thing. They thought if they could mimic that they'd make themselves.
Yeah.
They did it again they kind of took a different stance in the early 2000s, where if you wanted to be a Marvel artist, you couldn't have that cartoony look.
Right.
They wanted this picture realist look.
You had to draw like Brian Hitch.
Is that who they were mimicking?
Yeah, because he was the artist on the Ultimates, and that's when that whole subculture or subworld of Marvel blew up, and everybody, the Samuel L. Jackson became Nick Fury, and it was the Ultimates line and Brian Hitch's art that catapulted all that into existence.
So he kind of has like a photorealistic art style, or
yeah.
I'm not familiar with him. I'm just because that's not really my thing, honestly.
Well, he's from, I believe he's British. He's from Great Britain.
Yeah.
But he's a really good artist. But yeah, it's that hyper realistic. Every bootstrap is illustrated. Every seam on the glove is illustrated. All the buttons are illustrated. That's kind of where that started.
Actually, I'm going to show my age. George Wonder, who took over Terry and the Pirates from Milton Caniff, he drew every buckle and whatnot on the Sunday pages. He was called a rivet man.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
A rivet man would just do everything that was and it kills the drawing.
Yeah. For me, especially, I feel that way. I don't gravitate to that. I appreciate the work that it goes into, and yes, you're an artist. You're a good artist. But I've always come across the idea that the way if you could tell an image with simple lines, that definitely shows a talent. The less lines you use to tell an image, the better.
Yeah, and that's yes, simple is best. That's the elements that are very important. But a lot of people think that if you put a lot of lines and a lot of stuff, then boy, look at all those lines. Look how much work went into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just cross hatching everything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this Predator piece is a perfect case in point. There's all of this stuff in here, and I used to do this hyper realistic stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I just got to a point where it was like, I hate doing this, and
right.
I mean, I'm committed to it now on this piece, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish it. But I haven't done something like this in about 4 years. But it's tedious, and
it is, but even with that, there's still simple lines that are involved there. But when you look at, and we're about to have to play a bump, but when you look at, like, you go and you look at the image stuff that we were talking about, you look at Todd McFarlane, you look at that, they were putting all these lines in there that didn't necessarily inform the piece.
Right.
It just looked cool.
Yeah.
and I ate it up. Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and play a bump. Let me go ahead and play a bump, and we'll come right back and talk a little bit more about this.
Eagle Raven returns to Kickstarter in its first trade paperback, collecting issues 1 through 4 in one full-color volume. Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, is the story of a unicorn princess exiled into the mortal realm after she is betrayed by her elf prince husband-to-be. Dragons overtake her kingdom, and how she trains to become a knight with the help of an unusual trio of blacksmiths. It's a mature audience telling of the classic hero's journey with a soap opera twist. So check out Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, Volume 1 today.
All right, back.
Yes.
But see, like with this, with this Predator, everything informs the texture of the skull. It informs the way I guess that I don't want to say hair tentacles. I'm not quite sure what are they called? The Yujuda? I couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
Yaja, I think, or Yachua or something like that.
So, to be honest with you, I just learned that they had a name. That's how horrible.
Yeah.
The only comic that I read that had the Predator was Batman versus Predator, and I don't think they even got into that situation, to what they were called. But they were kind of adding. If you hear Barb Kalberg, the inker over at Silverline and longtime inker Malibu Comics and stuff. And she's inked a couple of the Image guys, and she'll tell you real quick. They used to call it the Scritchy Scratchy, and it used to get on her nerves because there was so much stuff that just didn't, matter.
Yeah, are you familiar with Sandra Hope?
The name sounds familiar, but no.
Yeah, she inked Humberto Ramos on Crimson. And
oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I have
she
those
is actually, I bought 2 pieces of Ramos original art, and both of them she inked, and I just love. She's on. I follow her on Instagram, and she'll have her 45-second things on there where she's inking.
Right.
And was part of the Wildstorm thing, so she inks a lot of stuff for DC now. And oh my God, she is one of the most underrated, phenomenally talented artists. But real quick, tell you a story how she got her job. Out in San Diego, she met with some people, and she didn't really have anything with her, but somebody had said, well, she's pretty good. Somebody gave her a page to ink, and they said, okay, come back tomorrow with this inked. She didn't have anything to ink with but a black ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
So she went back to her hotel room that night and inked the page with the ballpoint pen, and they hired her the next day on the spot.
All right. And see, that just goes to show you really, it's the talent. It's not the tool.
Yeah.
or the skill. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Do you have to have talent to be an artist? Or to be a decent artist, anyway?
Discipline is just as important. Patience, which I lack a lot of sometimes.
Oh gosh, tell me about it. I know that feeling.
What do you think, John?
Well, I have no talent, so
right. Okay.
I look at it this way. I would rather. Okay, so what is actually the question here? Is it to be an artist? Do you not need talent?
I think the question. Okay, for instance, if somebody sees what you're doing,
yeah,
they're not an artist or they don't draw.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, you got so much talent. Are they really seeing talent? Or are they seeing like John, like Rodney said, discipline or skill?
Well, they're seeing craft. Okay.
Yeah.
You can.
Thanks, Mark.
You can train your hand. If you have good hand and eye coordination, you can train yourself to be able to produce materials that are pleasing. Okay. So you can do that. It's the same way as, if you understand the tools of woodwork, okay, you can build a cabinet, but it's not going to be more than something that is functional. Someone can draw. Not everybody can, will hammer a nail properly,
Right.
But I think what they're seeing is, if they don't have any talent, if your audience is getting something out of your piece, then to them you have talent, because it's something that they haven't been able to do on their own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It's kind of like, if you are functional, if you the person with one eye is king of the blind. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think I've heard that before. It's been a long time.
So, that's basically, you can have that. But if you have somebody, an artist is someone who says something that hasn't been said before.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are creating something that hasn't been done. You could see elements of other things in the piece, but suddenly the artist has taken things that were simple, but put them together and given a twist that says something, that speaks to the audience.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. I mean, I know it's being long-winded, but I mean, your question is a person. That's the difference between someone who is competent and is a craftsman versus someone and has learned tricks and can put it together. And how many times have you seen? I've seen. You'll look at somebody's work and said, I know they drew this, but I've seen this before.
Yeah. There's a couple of people I can think of.
Okay, so they're referencing. They've captured certain things, and they've done it over and over again, and they've been able to do it and replicate it. And you say, and they do it quickly, and you say, wow, look how fast he drew that. Well, he's had that thing in his mind for years.
Yeah.
He's done it over and over. It's muscle memory at some point.
Right. Well, that's just like when you draw on a character in a comic book. You've drawn that character over and over so much that when you see somebody says for you, just go ahead and draw it, you're used to doing it.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah. There is that aspect, but the thing about it is that if you've created the character and developed the design, well, then you are the artist.
Right.
But if you're copying Peanuts and Snoopy, you've just memorized the shapes and forms and can imitate it. That's a different story.
Yeah, my wife had an interesting way to snapping me out of my head when we first started doing shows, 12 or so years ago, where I was actually drawing behind the table, because back in the 90s, I wasn't doing the artwork. I was doing everything else but the artwork. So she told me, she said, Rodney, she said, what you do on this side of the table is magic to the folks over there. You are the only one that knows if this isn't off, if this is off a little bit or that's off, because from that side you are a wizard and you're making potions back here. So get over yourself and just draw. It's like, okay. And from that point on, it just kind of centered me and like, okay, you're not building rockets. You're just building cylinders and putting muscles on it.
cubes, cylinders, and squares.
Exactly. Find your center line and move out from there.
I think that's what I've learned, and I think I've completed 1, 2, 3. I've completed 3 comics plus half here and there right now, I think comics is probably the best way for you to learn your craft, in the sense that you're having to continually draw the same thing over again. You have to continually think of. I mean, one page can have, let's just say 9 different compositions. We'll go by the 9 panel rule. At least 9, or at most, supposedly 9 compositions. So you're drawing, every frame you're doing is a different piece of art. It's almost individual, even though it all comes together. And it's really a great way for you to learn what you need to know.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. You unless you are copying or using all kinds of references to be able to create to be able to use as a reference, that's still not. You're not looking from within your head. You're not looking to say, okay, I could see it this way. And you're relying upon stock or somebody else's version. I mean, a way to place the camera, how to pace your posing.
Right.
You have to do it yourself. And when you do that, you find out it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It depends on the style also, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're doing something very realistic, you have to do it like Tilda guys did, always with some kind of reference. You can twist a little bit here or there. In my case, I usually use, let's say, 70% of my comic is with references, because I just need to do that realistic style, and I need to look at something. I know how to do some stuff, but if I'm going to go very realistic, I have really to have a base for that drawing, for that panel. So it's a little bit, how do I say? I feel a little bit frustrated sometimes, because I have to do this pose, but I have to take a picture of myself just to know exactly how the hand looks like, and the angle of my face, the nose, whatever. I have to take that picture just to be able to understand the form of that,
Right,
because
yeah.
I've learned everything by myself. I didn't have classes, and that's hard to. As long as I draw, as much as I draw, the hours that I put into it, I don't have those basic knowledge like a lot of people has, and that I always am amazed how certain people can draw without looking at anything, and sometimes I feel very sad when I try to do something that I can't, and I have to use a reference because I must do it.
Well, in your style, if you are the actor, it's still part of you.
Yeah.
It's and you're doing the best. This is what you do. This is your design. This is your style. But then what you take it and you work with it, right? You still it's still you, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
but
Well, Marv, I think what you're struggling with is I think you might be coupling using reference with aping a style, and they're two different things.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've used my phone and to take a picture of my fist or my forearm clenched in a different way, just so I know that I get it right. Everybody does that. That's using reference is smart.
Yeah.
But what you want to stay away from is finding a pose in a comic book and aping it as your own. And that was something that was really prevalent in the 90s. Now, the thing that happens now is parkour. A lot of kids are taking parkour pictures and they're turning them into poses. But that's okay in my book because it's reference. So they're making sure that they're getting the twist of the body right and everything's anatomically correct. But it's not quote unquote cheating if you're using it for reference. So the anatomy and everything's okay. It's in my opinion, it's when you're taking something another person's drawing and you're trying to ape it and you're learn that way. I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know. What's everybody else?
No, well, yeah, no, absolutely. I think reference is definitely important, and even in what you're saying,
Yes,
which is great, and a lot of people would find that. What I think for me, and I think like for MarV too, is I want to be able to make my own poses. So in order to do that, and of course you have to use reference to understand that I'll be a firm. You need to go out and sketch anatomy.
yes.
There's websites out there that'll show you a picture for 30 seconds and like a series of them for 10 minutes, 30 seconds each. Go out there, learn that, and you don't have to be like perfect as far as the anatomy, the muscle, and everything, but to get your flow, to get the way that your body moves, the mechanics of that energy we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even though you might have been doing this for years, still do that, because for sure I don't know about. I can't speak for everybody in this room, but I have a tendency to lose that if I don't go and do that kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
But I will never frown at anybody using reference. As far as myself, I'd like to move towards being able to put together a pose knowing that anatomy.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing, is that if you use it as an educational, self-educational process, then you're moving away from it. You're trying to move away from it. If you are, studying how something moves and twists and turns, enables you then to retain that information. It's like, you know the basic elements of squash and stretch. Okay, you understand that, but how you use it is something else. If you at some point, and it's only after you reach of doing it for maybe 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we'll go back to that. Well, okay, Rodney, for Rock and Rule, okay?
Yes.
All my animation, there was no reference. When I did Quad Hole or Cindy, the gal on roller skates, or Mylar, there was no reference. It was just, I mean, the reference might have been me looking in the mirror for a moment or two.
Right.
But I had already been doing this for 6 years, daily, every day, 40 hours a week, 52, 50 weeks a year. I did the 10,000 hours, and at a certain point, you know what something is going to work or not, and you start pushing yourself. So you have that. If you have all of that, the referencing and the knowledge of how bodies work, then you then start putting your own take on it, and you're expanding upon it without thinking about, oh, I need to have it referenced. But it does happen, but it's only after, and this is it. It's not you doing it all by yourself. Here's the hard part, is you have to do those 10,000 hours. You have to be able to please somebody else, a boss.
Yeah.
You have to audience. You have to please an audience before you could say, yeah, I know my stuff.
Yep.
And that's the only way to do it. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind. And that was the thing about old style cartooning and animation, is that you had a master animator, or you had a cartoonist that you assisted under. You know, and so you learned all the basics because the person who was, you know, who you were answering to knew their stuff. And so it's not enough to say, oh yeah, you did really good, here's a trophy. You need to be told, do it again because it's not good.
Yeah.
And this is the reason it's not good.
Yep.
And you need that. Otherwise, you're not going to. You're just going to, you know, you're going to spend. You could spend 10,000 hours without really growing.
It's not so much about it's about how much you practice, but it's about practicing right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I tell kids at shows all the time that they really need to get out of the house when it comes to showing their art to people, because your mom's always going to love everything you do, and you need to find a group of friends that are going to be honest with you and not placate you, and you know, tell you that this is wrong or that this is out of whack. Redo this, because surrounding yourself with yes men does you no good.
Yeah.
Right.
And but be careful that you don't have somebody, you know, you don't show your stuff to people who have agendas, because one thing is that they'll say, this is how I would have done it. And that's different from saying, well, what is it that you want to say with this? And this doesn't feel right to me. And that it's hard to find honest people that will critique and help you.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where nobody wants to offend anybody.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Oh man, I've heard so many bad stuff about my about my art when I started. Like, this is garbage, this is shit. With no let's say constructive critique. Why this
Yeah.
is shit? You know why?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
selling. But why? That's
Yeah,
what
and
bugs
that-
me sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, they're only trying to to push you down.
Yep.
That's that. So after, and you have to be honest with yourself, and that takes a lot of energy sometimes, especially. And again, you can only get up to a certain point, but if you can develop your styles and be able to, and this is what crowdfunding is good, because you can produce your own work after a while, and people will either like it or not.
right.
They don't have agenda. They're all crowdfunder supporters who follow who will support your work. They only want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a
That's
good
true.
barometer of your work, is if people on those platforms are supporting your work.
Hmm. I mean, they have to know who you are, and you've got to be able to deliver. That's to me, that's one of the biggest problems with crowdfunding, is that all you need are a handful of really dishonest people or unreliable people, and it ruins it for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
That's true.
Yeah, Marvin. Another thing, I don't remember which one said it, but consider the source when they're telling you that you're shit. Um, um, what are they doing? Who are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep you down because it's a competition. It's a business. So if they knock you down and steal your confidence, then they can shoehorn their way in. So there's a lot of that too that you have to be aware of. Consider the source.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, the guy who told me that is a very well-known painter. At the time, he went to the gallery and saw my stuff, but I wasn't very upset for him saying that. I was upset because he wasn't telling me why, just because.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah, I like when people look at my stuff. I knew another well-known painter that went to another exhibition, and he called me and taught me. He talked with me in private, and he said, "Hey, look, you have to be better at this. This line is not right. This is wrong. And he stayed with me for, I don't know, maybe an hour or more, telling me, going piece by piece and telling me, this is good, keep it like this, and he was just building my knowledge. And that's what I like. When someone sees the Sin Killer or another stuff that I'm doing, I like that people tells me, man, this is wrong because of this. You got to be better at this, at this, at this. And for me, that's great. For me, I love when people tell me that. Everybody, a lot of people like my work, but I like when people tells me, you got to be better at this. Because if nobody tells me that, I will continue to screw up.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Well, chances are somebody that just comes out and tells you that you suck. There's other ulterior motives there.
Yeah.
Because I know, as far I have had one of the most nerve-wracking things to do, and if you want to be an artist, you have to do it. I'm sure everybody will have to agree, is to show your art. And for comic book artists to go to a con and bring your portfolio, it's nerve-wracking because you have no idea what they're going to say.
Yep.
I had one guy, a very prominent artist, fantastic artist, took my stuff. He flipped through it so fast, I don't know how he saw anything, and maybe he did. What he tells me was line weight and anatomy, and he hands it back to me. Now, when you go to a con, I'm going to suggest two things. One, if you're going to show your artwork to somebody, make sure that they're not engaged in doing something.
Yeah.
Like if they're drawing commissions or something like that, some of them will still look at your stuff, and some of them are distracted even no matter what. And two, find people whose style not mimic, or you're not mimicking, but are close to yours. Because going to somebody like we were talking about the photorealistic guy, going to somebody like that and you draw Mickey Mouse or you draw it's not going to help you.
Right.
It's not going to. They might give you something here or there for composition or whatever the case is, but what you're really looking for that end that is not going to be there. And the guy handed it back to me. He said anatomy and line weight, which was okay. And then he kind of paused and he thought about it and he said, "Well, but when you deal as far as line weight's concerned, when you're dealing with the way you're drawing, it's it doesn't have to be that way." But this guy doesn't draw like I do. He has a different art style than I have. So, and I kind of learned from that. It's like, well, if I have a certain art style, I want to go to artists that are in that parameters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to draw like Jim Lee. I think Jim Lee's a fantastic artist. But I don't want to draw like Jim Lee.
Right.
Now, does that mean that I can't learn anything from Jim Lee? Absolutely. That's not what that means at all. But the chances are, like you said, they're going to give you their opinion of how they would do something. More likely, like what John said.
Yeah. The closest that I've came to having anybody like that when I first started out was at the school of is the Art Students League in New York City. This is about 1970. Oh God, 1971, 72. So like they were doing, it was nighttime classes once a week. And the artist, it was cartooning. And it was Bern Hogarth who was doing the class.
Oh,
nice.
Okay. And yeah, that's what I said. Okay. That's nothing that it was just, I went there for 3 sessions. And back then it cost you, it was a nighttime for 2 hours and it was live model drawing, just drawing a human anatomy. And you had a couple of different models that they would go weekly once. And so the first time around, it was like, and it was $10 an hour. Okay. $10 a class. Okay. So this is 1973.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money. Okay. $10, I mean, and I'm working for a living, I wasn't at home. I had my own apartment in Manhattan. I was working hard. So I went there the first night and I was expecting to get some sort of for him to be doing, saying something. And I said, well, okay, do the drawing, and he'd go by and he'd, follow the model and do from your point of view. And he'd go from one person to another and look over their shoulders, and I see them making comments and, this other person and, and then, spending some time with another person. And he came over to me and he looked at it, he says, looks good. And then walked on.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. I said, oh, well, okay. I kind of was expecting a little more.
You want a little more, yeah.
Okay. I went back the second week. Okay. Same thing happened. The third week, same thing. And I said to myself, I don't need to pay somebody $10, to tell me I'm good.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I was making a living. I was working at the New York Athletic Club as the house, on layout and doing the magazine staff. And I was drawing sports cartoons and things of that sort and what have you. But I was trying to learn. And I wasn't going to get anything from this guy. So it don't matter. Maybe it's that you reach a certain point where you don't need it. And so again, basically, I'm self-taught. Never went to school for art, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
But my art, was developed working, at work, and I learned a lot. Going being in as an in-betweener, as an assistant animator at Tubby the Tuba at New York Institute of Technology, and working with old Popeye and Mighty Mouse animators, and they would critique my work. Popeye, Johnny Gent, the best Popeye fight artist, the 1940s and 50s. When you look at the model sheets of the 1940s, that's his.
Oh wow.
Wow. I learned a lot just doing the in-betweens and having somebody say, yeah, this is good, this is not good, and clean up and all that. And then working at Ragged Ann and Andy with us doing assistant work, and Richard Williams was directing. So I learned, but again, it's on the job training.
Right. Which is a lot better than being able to sit there and just say, okay, do this technique. But like Hogarth, or for instance, I think Hogarth.
Who's Tarzan?
Yeah, no, I know. He also has a lot of. I have a couple of his books.
Yep.
But to be completely honest with you, I don't really look at them as much as I would look at Bridgman. So.
Yeah. Well, what you're learning is a very classical piece of how to put a body together, but it's posed.
Right.
Yeah.
Posed to the point where it's a statue. You look at all the poses, and even his characters in that are supposed to be in action, they've been placed like mannequins with wires hanging from the ceilings, and Tarzan is jumping, but he's been posed.
Yeah, I noticed for me. The way I relate that, it's Boris Vallejo versus Frank Frazetta.
Mm.
The Vallejo stuff was always posed and clean, and Frank's was full of action.
Yeah.
And motion.
Yeah.
Well, it's that energy, isn't it? It really kind of goes back to that energy.
Yeah.
And even though Hogarth is very stiff, he's still a good artist, but you don't capture that energy like the reference. If you stick so far to the reference, you don't capture that energy.
Right. Well, look at the difference between, and I'm going to go back to, I think one of the best to me, the Jack Kirby artwork to me is of the mid 50s to when he left Marvel. We're talking about. I mean, there was a period of time when he and Joe Simon were doing their own, stuff. I mean, The Fighting American.
Right.
Look at The Fighting American, and then finally, when he went, it was doing the cowboy stuff. The monsters for Atlas. Which was Marvel. You're doing the monster comics and doing, the Rawhide Kid. I really enjoyed that in the very early Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it was just that energy.
Yeah, all energy. It's all energy, and that's what you, as an artist, that's what you want to see. At least for whatever some of us, that's what the raw energy does. So, if you are going to, develop your abilities as an artist, I would say there's a certain amount of there's technique, and then there's energy. And energy to me wins out over technique.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I agree. Gesture drawings.
Yep. Oh yes. Yeah. That's
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
30 seconds gestures.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Gesture. Thank you. I couldn't think of the. Yeah.
There's actually an app that you can put on your phone. It's just called Gesture Drawing, and it's 1,000 poses of a man and 1,000 poses of a woman and various get-ups, and it's just all for just do this pose and do it in a minute. Yeah.
And so I mean, like this is what I was doing with Michael here in this piece here. It's all a gesture.
Yeah.
It's all it is.
I'll tell you, it took I've took some classes. I've taken online classes here and there how to draw. When I first really got back into it, I took David Finch's class over at Genome Workshop. I think it's Genome Workshop. So I'm bad with names. It started with a G. Now he's teaching it free on YouTube, and I'm like, really? I paid like $40 a month to get that, but okay. But you get that, and you're like, he's teaching you how to draw superheroes. But one thing he didn't include in that, and I realize now, and it's not on Dave, it's on me for not realizing that he's not really teaching basics there. But was the action line, line
of action.
Yeah, thank you. Line of action.
Yep.
He's not really hitting on, or if he does, it didn't register to me. So I'm going to kind of put that, disclaimer out there too. That might not have registered to me.
It's forms and forces. I mean, you've got your force, which is the bend and straights. I mean, if you have a curve going, you play with that, and then you have a form that is affected by that force. I mean, that's why the difference of capturing the line of action and the forces that are playing on a person who's posing, and that's where you get go back to what we were talking about earlier. See, with getting a feeling of something moving. You when you study somebody a model, just see where is their weight, and know where that is first. Usually it's always going to be in the hip, because if the character wherever the person is putting the most weight on, that's where I put my concentration. Because the hip, the shoulder, all of those places, and say, okay, what's holding things together, but yet where is it? What is it pressing against, and what is it lifting? And when you think about in those terms, then it simplifies what you need to do in capturing that pose.
Right.
Point of emphasis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I've shared a great channel on the chat, the Proco TV. If you don't know that channel is very, very good for live drawings. Great tips, great artists going there and teach some very cool stuff. Check that out. That's how I learned lots of my stuff 10 years ago, something like that.
Proco, yeah,
that's good. That's a good channel.
He has a lot of there's also a guy that's he does some of his teaching on Patreon, Mitch Lewy, I think it is. Of course, he's a cartoonist too, but he's able to break down those shapes for you to be able to move. Because even with comic artists, you want to be able to have your shapes broke down so that you're able to draw them and pose them the right way.
Yeah.
But there was one, and I put it there. Let's see. You said, let's put it up here. Say Proco TV.
Yeah.
There's also this one.
The link. Yeah.
But like this one right here, the quickposes.com. This is one of those ones that will help you with the quick gestures, the gesture drawing. You go through and you set your time limits, and you'll stay 1 minute on each picture. And it'll go through, and you can adjust it to where it's just female, just male, both, kids, adult, so on, clothed, unclothed, if that's your thing. That kind.
I used to be on coffee shops drawing people, because for me it was the greatest exercise.
Oh yeah.
For drawing, yeah.
Well,
that's
yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
No. Just make sure that you don't freak people out. But this is but you're talking about Europe. Europe. They're used. People don't get so crazy about other people drawing them, right, Marv?
I was on the balcony. It was on my job, and I was just looking at people and enjoying there. So I was always doing that every time that I was able to, and it was a very good exercise. And I lost a lot of that lately. I can tell that I've got to do it again. This time as a customer.
It's almost like reminding your brain how to think. That makes any sense.
Well, I mean, it's a diminishable skill. If you don't use it, you tend to lose it. Like, I'm learning, going back to trying to ink with a brush, and it's a different animal. So, and I haven't done it in a while. I just picked up the Pentel brush pen and was just working with it here, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember I can do this now. I can do this, and it's just continually teaching yourself new tricks, and it's another arrow in your quiver.
That's one thing about those. Have you seen that on like Facebook? You have those. I think it's Cube Brush is the name of it, and they're coming up with like these pose packs, and it's always these action poses like sword fighting or kicking or whatever the case is. And I'm like, I want a pose pack of people laying on a couch. I want a pose pack of people sitting at a table eating dinner. I want those type of poses, because when you deal with comic, I'm sure I'm telling you something you already know, but when you're dealing with comics, it's like, okay, 10 to 20% of the comic's going to be some kind of action pose, what you're dealing with, depending on the comic you're doing. But the other 80% of it's going to be average movement.
I tell kids all the time at conventions, anybody can draw Spider-Man swinging across the cityscape. That's easy. But can you draw a 3-page scene where Peter Parker's in the kitchen talking to Aunt May about the cookie sale down at the free store, and he's brewing a cup of coffee, and Aunt May's sitting there reading the paper? Can you draw that and make that interesting?
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
And then they look at you cross-eyed like, what?
Right. They're like, what do you mean I can't just draw pinups for 30 pages? No.
No, they say you have to do that only when you start doing crowdfunding.
But it's interesting because the things that take the hardest and the most discipline to do and make interesting, which is usually the most mundane, people take for granted.
Take it for granted, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Art Babbitt, who was a master animator at Disney's, he would say, he'd give you exercises, when he would give his assistants, here's a scene to go do at home, and I'll look at it. The hardest thing is you have a person lying in bed, gets up, stands up, and then goes to the door of the bedroom and open it and walk out that door. Try and figure out how to make that entertaining.
Right.
Right. That is the thing. But it's also, you have to lay it out. So what you have to learn to do is figure out the mechanics of how to make that entertaining. It's like a comic book layout, basically. Where do you place the door? Where do you place it? Where the hinges are? Does it go? The doors open inward, to the room. So are you going to place it next to the bed, or are you placing the hinges to the other side so that you can open it up? But then how do you get the person, you place the character so that, you're walking the character, opening the door, and then being able to walk through without hitting their feet. you know.
Only the pasting.
Yeah.
Only the pasting is a completely different work. You know, only the does we started with him opening his eyes and scratching his head, or are we going to make him taking off his pajamas and dress and go out the door? Does he look for his watch on the table, you know, to see the time? All that stuff is
it's up to you. It's up to you. It's the business. It's
the decision making. Yeah.
It's the business to make it entertaining. You know, you can have him jump up, land, put his shoes on, and then open the door and then run out. Or he's scratching his head and then gets up and scratches his butt, and you know, and he stands up and he goes off and he realizes he doesn't have anything on, so he grabs the table, he grabs the pillow and holds on to it because he realizes that he's got a camera that's been recording everything.
Yeah, I actually have a bedroom scene coming up in this book I'm working on now that I got to do like 9 panels for. So, I got to add a whole bunch of interesting stuff in there to keep it, moving.
Well, Jeff,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to leave. It's getting close to noon here, so I'm.
Yeah, I was just about to go ahead and close it myself. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, but I'll tell you what. Go ahead, John. Tell us where we can find you.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Celestri John. I'm on Facebook at John Celestri, and I got my own YouTube video at John Celestri. But check out Bloodwing Angel Chronicles on Indiegogo. I'm starting in September launching, but I've got a pre-launch page.
Cool.
So you can find me there.
Awesome. Rodney, where can we find you, sir?
You can find us. You can find me on Instagram at Rodney_Fyke. You can find me on Facebook at Rodney Fyke Art. You can find me at the Hasm channel, the Hasm website, hasm.com, HAZZUM, where you can check out our books, Peanut Pudding and Jelly, Pitter Patter, Unchained, and Roadkill Rampage. Also Thursdays and Friday nights for Thursday Night Throwdown or Friday Night Draw with Sean Forney, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, where we work on commissions or artwork and talk all things nerdy from 8 to 9:30.
Oh, thanks.
And here on Saturday mornings.
And here, right. Marv, tell us where we can find you, Mr. Ripper.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram on MarV Scene Killer, but right now I'm blocked. I'm on Facebook jail because everybody gets offended on that. Yeah, it's gonna be a couple of weeks. I don't know what is wrong with the world, but it's okay. We can't be humor is dead right now. So yeah, I didn't done anything wrong morally, I think. But okay.
Let them be the judge of that, right?
Yeah. MarV Scene Killer. And it's always a blast being here because I've learned so much from everybody. So yes, it's an honor to be here, and hope to see you all next show. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Right. Awesome. And of course, I'm C. Michael Lanning. You can check me out at Linktree or linktr.ee/C. Michael Lanning, which has my Facebook, Twitter, and everything. You can send me a friend request. I might get around to it eventually. Then, of course, right here on the Indie Comics Network, we're doing Dispatches from Outside the Box on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. It's a show where we scour the corners of geekdom to inspire you to create outside the box. This week we'll be talking about puppets with the panel, and who knows who's going to be there. So check that out. And of course, all the other great shows that we have right here on the Ragin 2 Broadcasting Network. So, and somebody's telling me to shut up, obviously. So I will run it. And of course, see me here next week with the guys as we talk more about drawing and sketching. So bye, everybody.
Thank you.